You won't believe what happened to me.
What happened?
Don't ask.
Is Lady Luck still slapping you around?
Hey there, welcome back to Forgotten Hollywood. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into one of television's most beloved yet ultimately heartbreaking stories. If you grew up in the late 70s or early 80s, you probably rushed to your living room every week to catch the latest adventures of the Drummond-Jackson family. That infectious theme song, those memorable catchphrases, the laughter that seemed to bring America together across racial and economic divides. But what if I told you that behind those bright studio lights and carefully crafted scripts lay a darker reality that would eventually consume almost everyone involved? This is the untold story of Diff'Rent Strokes, a revolutionary sitcom that changed television forever while simultaneously destroying the lives of its young stars. When Diff'Rent Strokes premiered on November 3, 1978, it wasn't just another family sitcom. It was a cultural earthquake that broke barriers by placing an interracial family in America's living rooms during prime time. The premise was revolutionary yet simple. Wealthy white Manhattan businessman Philip Drummond adopts two African-American brothers from Harlem after their mother, his former housekeeper, passes away. What made Diff'Rent Strokes truly groundbreaking wasn't just the interracial adoption storyline. It was that the show didn't make race its only focus. These were complex characters dealing with universal family issues, while occasionally addressing serious social topics that other sitcoms wouldn't touch. This was Norman Lear's influence on television coming to full fruition. But the true lightning in a bottle was undoubtedly Gary Coleman, the diminutive actor with giant comedic timing who brought Arnold Jackson to life. His catchphrase, "What you talking about, Willis?" became embedded in American culture almost overnight. What viewers at home never knew was that Gary Coleman's journey to stardom was anything but straightforward. Born with a congenital kidney disease called focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, Gary's growth was permanently stunted by the powerful medications needed to keep him alive. By age 10, he had already undergone 2 kidney transplants and required daily dialysis throughout much of his childhood. Gary wasn't originally supposed to be on the show at all. Fred Silverman, who was running NBC at the time, had seen Gary in a bank commercial and was completely captivated by his natural charisma. The original concept for the show featured just one adopted child, but Silverman insisted, "Get me that kid with the perfect timing." And the entire premise was rewritten to build around Gary's undeniable talent. The revamped show was an instant hit, skyrocketing to the top of the ratings. But this meteoric rise came with a devastating cost for its young stars. Despite being the undisputed star of a top-rated network show, financial records reveal that Gary Coleman initially earned just $1,800 per episode, a fraction of what adult actors in similar positions would command. By the show's peak, intense negotiations had raised his salary to $70,000 per episode, making him technically the highest-paid child actor on television. Yet when Gary turned 18 and legally gained control of his finances, he made a horrifying discovery. Of the approximately $18 million he had earned, less than $220,000 remained. His parents and financial advisors had systematically drained his accounts through dubious investments and excessive management fees. In 1989, Gary sued his parents and former manager for misappropriation of his trust fund. After a lengthy legal battle, he won a $1.3 million settlement, but the victory was hollow. Between legal fees and ongoing medical expenses for his kidney condition, the money quickly evaporated. People don't understand what it was like being a child star back then. There were no real protections for us. The studios worked us like adults but paid us like children. Our parents controlled everything, and many of us never saw most of the money we earned. By the time we were old enough to realize what happened, it was gone. Todd Bridges, who played Willis Jackson, faced his own devastating journey. While Gary's problems were primarily financial and medical, Todd's demons took a different form. After Diff'Rent Strokes ended in 1986, Todd spiraled into crack cocaine and methamphetamine addiction. Between 1983 and 1993, he was arrested multiple times for various offenses, including a high-profile attempted murder charge in 1989, for which he was ultimately acquitted. I started using drugs to numb the pain. We were these famous kids that everyone recognized, But behind closed doors, I was dealing with physical and sexual abuse. I'd go to work with this perfect TV family, then go home to a completely different reality. The contrast broke something inside me. Perhaps the most tragic trajectory belonged to Dana Plato, who portrayed Kimberly Drummond, the biological daughter of Philip Drummond. Initially cast as the all-American girl next door, Dana's life began unraveling during the later seasons of the show. When she became pregnant at age 18, producers wrote her out of most episodes, only bringing her back occasionally after her child was born. After Diff'Rent Strokes ended, Dana's career prospects dried up completely. Desperate for work and attention, she posed for Playboy in 1989. By 1991, her financial situation had become so dire that she walked into a Las Vegas video store, pointed a pellet gun at the clerk, and demanded the cash in the register, all of $164. The former star was arrested within hours. In what would become her final interview, Dana appeared on The Howard Stern Show, seemingly optimistic about getting her life back on track. She discussed her sobriety and plans for the future. Less than 24 hours later, on May 8, 1999, Dana was found dead in her RV from an overdose of prescription medication and alcohol. She was just 34 years old. Conrad Bain, who played Philip Drummond, reflected on the tragedy years later. "What happened to those kids haunts me. We were a family on screen, and in many ways off-screen too. I tried to be a steadying influence, but the pressures they faced were just overwhelming. The entertainment industry simply wasn't equipped to protect child stars from the darker sides of fame." Beyond the personal tragedies of its stars, Diff'Rent Strokes left another complicated legacy: its groundbreaking approach to tackling serious social issues. The show became famous for its very special episodes that addressed topics like racism, drug abuse, alcoholism, bulimia, and even sexual predators. The two-part episode, The Bicycle Man, where a local shop owner attempts to sexually abuse Arnold and his friend Dudley, remains one of television's most daring moments. It was unprecedented for a family sitcom to address pedophilia so directly. These special episodes were both praised and criticized. Some viewed them as important tools for raising awareness and starting difficult conversations in American homes. Others saw them as exploitative issue-of-the-week tactics to boost ratings. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. What's undeniable is that Diff'Rent Strokes helped pave the way for future shows to address serious topics, even as its own stars were privately suffering. While the show was tackling these weighty topics on screen, behind the cameras, another kind of tension was brewing. Conrad Bain and the adult cast members regularly received hate mail and even death threats from viewers who objected to the show's depiction of an interracial family. This was 1978, only a decade after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and America was still deeply divided on issues of race. Bain later revealed that security had to be increased at NBC studios after specific threats were made against him and the child actors. Todd Bridges recalled being called a sellout by some in the black community for his role in the show. "People would come up to me on the street and say the most horrible things," he shared in a 2010 interview. "They'd say I was betraying my race by playing a black kid with a white father. I was just a teenager trying to act in a hit show, but suddenly I was being asked to carry all this racial baggage. It was overwhelming." Even the production of the show itself reflected the racial tensions of the era. When Norman Lear initially pitched the concept, several sponsors threatened to pull their advertising, uncomfortable with the premise of a wealthy white man adopting black children. The network stood firm, but the writers' room remained predominantly white throughout the show's run. Both Bridges and Coleman would later express frustration about storylines. They felt misrepresented the black experience. Gary Coleman's life after Diff'Rent Strokes continued to be defined by struggle and public humiliation. His short stature, he stood just 4'8" as an adult, severely limited his acting opportunities. He cycled through a series of increasingly demeaning jobs, working as a security guard at one point and declaring bankruptcy in 1999. In 2003, at age 35, he ran for governor of California in the recall election that eventually elected Arnold Schwarzenegger, finishing in 8th place among 135 candidates. Coleman's personal life was equally tumultuous. In 2007, he married Shannon Price, but their relationship was volatile from the start. They appeared on the TV show Divorce Court in 2008 to air their grievances. In 2009, Coleman was arrested for domestic violence and the couple divorced, though they continued living together. On May 28, 2010, after falling down the stairs at his home and suffering a brain hemorrhage, Gary Coleman died at age 42. Even his death became a spectacle when tabloids published photos of him in his hospital bed, allegedly sold by Price. Todd Bridges, unlike his co-stars, managed to find redemption. After hitting rock bottom with his drug addiction in the early 1990s, he achieved sobriety in 1993 and has remained clean ever since. He rebuilt his acting career with smaller roles and reality TV appearances, but his most important work has been as an advocate for the protection of child actors. He has testified before Congress about the need for stronger financial protections for young performers and speaks regularly about the dangers of early fame. "We were like laboratory rats," Bridges has said of his experience as a child star. Nobody knew what happened to child stars when they grew up, because it hadn't really happened before on such a large scale. "We were this experiment that went horribly wrong, and now the industry has learned from our pain." The tragedy of Diff'Rent strokes sparked important changes in how child actors are treated in Hollywood. The California Child Actors Bill, also known as the Coogan Law, named after child star Jackie Coogan, who also had his earnings stolen by his parents, was significantly strengthened in 2000. It now requires that 15% of a child actor's earnings be set aside in a blocked trust account and provides for greater court oversight of contracts and working conditions. Looking back at Diff'Rent strokes today reveals a profound irony. A show that broke barriers and addressed serious social issues on screen while its young stars suffered behind the scenes. The sitcom ran for 8 seasons and 189 episodes, bringing joy and laughter to millions of viewers. Yet its legacy is forever tainted by the tragic fates of the children who made it a success. Perhaps the true lesson of Diff'Rent strokes isn't found in its groundbreaking storylines or even in its cautionary tales about child stardom. Maybe it's simpler than that. A reminder that behind every entertaining performance lies real human beings with real struggles. The next time you laugh at a child star's antics on screen, remember Gary, Todd, and Dana, and consider the price that may be paid for your entertainment. Diff'Rent strokes showed America that families could come in all different forms and colors. It taught us that love transcends racial and economic boundaries. But its darkest legacy, the broken lives of its young stars, teaches us something equally important, that children, no matter how talented or famous, are still children, deserving of protection, guidance, and the chance to grow up whole. Thanks for joining us on this journey through one of television's most complex legacies. If you enjoyed this episode of Forgotten Hollywood, please like and subscribe for more untold stories from entertainment history. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most important stories happen when the cameras stop rolling.